Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. So, Bitcoin has capitulated. Bitcoin broke below 29,000 US dollars last night just after I uploaded my video. So, what is next? Because we do not have a huge array of support beneath our feet because unfortunately, looking at this on the weekly time frame, you've got your all-time high back here, December 2017. We break down, we have this long bear market where we accumulate between the ranges of 20,000 and 3,000. We accumulated between these ranges for a very long period of time, specifically 1,106 days worth of data traded. That is a long time to be accumulating to the side. So what happened after we took out the all-time high of $20,000? Well, you can see we really did not waste any time going up to these higher levels, and you can actually see we have less than 3 weeks worth of data traded within these regions. Why do I say less than 3 weeks? Well, you can see there's 1, 2, 3 candles coming into this range, and if we hop over to the daily time frame, I'm very curious to see exactly how many days we spent trending between these levels. From here to here, was it really only 14 days? 14 days worth of data traded. I guess we must have come up, closed the candle body on the weekly somewhere around about here, and then we've obviously had 2 weekly openings within here, but we've literally spent 14 days trading between 29,000 and 19,000. So we really don't have a huge array of support, and you can potentially argue this could be a big area of support. I really don't think there's enough support within this region to hold us up, but just out of pure interest and just to talk about every price level, you can see between 24,000 and 22,000 we may have a pinch of support, and I can't emphasize that enough. This is baby support. You come over to the weekly time frame, we traded for 3 years within these ranges, and then we've got 14 days worth of data traded to the next level. So where are some potential places where Bitcoin could come down to? We're going to talk about some places where we can see a bounce on Bitcoin, and then we're going to hop into the smaller time frames, and we're going to specifically look at what the stock market is doing, and also the dollar, because I have been calling this for the past couple of days. The dollar is exceptionally bullish. I've been saying now is not the time to be buying altcoins. I have been buying Bitcoin, but everything can get a lot more ugly in the market, so we're going to talk about that in a sec. But historically, let's hop over to our Bitcoin index. Now, this is a great chart, by the way. I've got this on a logarithmic growth scale. You might be looking at this chart and thinking, this is a great chart. It goes all the way back to 2010. This is just something that other trading view charts do not do. So I've made a video reviewing this chart, how to add it onto your trading view if you did want this chart of the all-time trading history of Bitcoin. It doesn't go back to the earliest transaction in 2009, but it includes all of the cycles, so that is very good. Like I said, if you do want to see how to get this chart, click on my channel, click on playlist, click on review, and you will see, I believe it's a review along the lines of Bitcoin, this is the longest chart, or something like that. It's the only chart review in my playlist on there right now. So let's jump into this. So historically, we've got two macro moving averages on our screen, which Bitcoin has traditionally found a lot of support in when we have been entering these bear markets. Now, I'm also going to pull up the EMA ribbon just to show you on the weekly time frame. We're sitting right now, I believe this is your 200 EMA. Yes, it is. So we're currently sitting on the 200 EMA. So this is going to be a big level of potential support, but you do go back, it's held a few times, but it hasn't necessarily held as well as some of these other moving averages, which we are going to talk about in just one moment. I do also want to come over to the monthly and see if we do have any moving averages on the monthly that could be a big level of support. Well, as you can see, looking at the Bitcoin trading price on the monthly time frame, we do seem to come back to the bottom of these EMA ribbons whenever we're in a bear market, and you can see we capitulate just below them. So if we take a price range, you can see in this initial drop from the monthly EMA ribbons, we capitulated a bit over 14%. I'm interested to know how far we capitulated in this event, because what's happening here, I'm sure all of you know, the March 20 fear, the pandemic, that kind of lines up, in my opinion, with what we're seeing now. It's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market. This previously went down 15% as well, but this came down 27%. And this is where we're going to talk about some of our moving averages, because if we remove these data points, if we remove the EMA ribbons, you can see historically whenever we come back, we normally find a plethora of support on this green line right here. And I'm going to make sure, I'm going to mark this orange actually, so we know which one we're talking about. Make both of these thicker. How do I make this one thicker? I just did it for the other one. Is it this one? No? Oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got these two trend lines. The orange one at the top is your 200 weekly moving average, and if we're talking about a line of best fit, this best incorporates all of your monthly closes. You can see we find a plethora of support. You can see back here 2015 we closed basically every monthly candle in the bear market just on or below it, and we had a capitulation wick, and we do not have the data from this purple moving average, which is the 300 week moving average. But if we do extrapolate this, obviously it would have been like this anyway, but it just did not have enough data points. It didn't have basically 300 weeks of data, so it wouldn't have loaded in. But if it did load in, if it was taking in data from, let's say hypothetically, the first 250 weeks, 260 weeks, it would look something like this. And you can see that we perfectly came down and capitulated to our 300 week moving average. So far the 200-day moving average seems to provide a plethora of support for your monthly candles. And if we hop over to the weekly, you can also see we did not close a weekly below this moving average. Also, while we are on the weekly, it's very interesting to note that we have never closed a weekly below this moving average. Well, depending on what you want to consider a close, because we technically closed maybe a percentile point below the moving average. If we extrapolate this, you can actually see a 3% move below on the close from the 200 week moving average. So that is something to take into account. But out of all of these lines, this moving average seems to be a perfect line of fit. And what's interesting about this is it lines up at 22,100. Why is that such an important level? Well, by itself it's not that significant, but you move it down to the previous all-time high and you can see it's only 11% away from the all-time high. I mean, if you put a horizontal ray on this, we're literally, that moving average would literally be sitting just above here. The chart looks a bit weird now because I've taken it out of the logarithmic growth curves, but if we put it back on the log scale, you can also see this 200-day moving average, like I said, held support perfect here, perfect there, and perfect there, and we're coming down to it now. So 22,000 could be a huge level of support. This could mean that Bitcoin could potentially capitulate another 21% if we were to come down to this moving average. So, you know, the least bearish situation that seems to be on the table is a 21.5% capitulation to the downside. Now, like I said, where else can we bounce? Because we do have a few other places where we couldn't. The previous all-time high, in my opinion, would be a great place to find a plethora of support. This is something that Bitcoin has not really done before. Once you make a new all-time high and you enter a bull market, we've never really seen coming back to the previous all-time high. So I would almost feel like looking at all of the data points, that this would be the most likely scenario where we could come down another 21.5% and find support at the 200-day moving average. Now, this is just what I think is most likely, and to be honest, I did not think it was, I did not think Bitcoin was going to capitulate this hard below 29,000. So I was wrong on that front. I thought Bitcoin was going to hold 29,000 for a plethora of reasons. I mean, Bitcoin broke the logarithmic growth curves. This is something that we've really only seen once before in this fear, uncertainty, and doubt moment coming into March of 2020. So Very interesting stuff. You can see we have two potential places where we can bottom, one of them coming in at 22,000 and one of them coming in at just below 20,000. So let's call it 19k. Let's remove these, remove this, and then we can look at the 300-week moving average. Now, like I said, we already drew this to start with. If we do extrapolate the basic trend line, you can see that we did find perfect support on this coming into 2015. This was granted before it fully loaded in, but you know, hypothetically speaking, if we were incorporating, you know, if you were drawing it week by week, so if it was the 260 weekly moving average and the 261, 262, if you were drawing the data points in as they loaded, it would have, you know, extrapolated around this region. So perfect bottom when we did have our mass fear event. And what's also interesting is when we had this mass fear event coming into March of 2020, we found perfect support on the moving average. We also found perfect support on the trend lines, and we talked about these mega trend lines before, where you draw from the previous all-time high and extrapolate it to the next data point. And unfortunately, we've already passed the point of that for Bitcoin. That line was meant to come in at 31,000 and we've capitulated below it, so we will be having to look for lower price targets on this one. Obviously we're not gonna be holding this one unless we reverse on the weekly, which does seem somewhat unlikely at this point. So you can see we've got two perfect touch points on the 300-week moving average, and while the economy has changed, while the geopolitical news is very, very different in what we're seeing in the world right now, we have the same fear, uncertainty and doubt in the market as we did back here. So I do feel like it could be potential that we could come down to these levels. Now, this would literally be my worst case scenario, and just so you know, I don't have this as my most likely scenario. In fact, I really think bottoming between 21,000 and 19,000 is the most likely, but like I said, being completely honest, I thought 29,000 was going to hold. So I'm just looking at the moving averages and going through them with you, but 16,000 would be the next level down if we were to capitulate from these moving averages. So if we take a measurement tool, this could potentially mean a approximately 43% drop down to 16,000. So on this macro chart, we've got three data points where historically this was the most common scenario. This was a scenario where sometimes we capitulated to, and this is the worst case scenario where every single time Bitcoin has had a mass capitulation, it's come back to this moving average. So we're left with three data points at this moment in time where Bitcoin could possibly capitulate to, and they're all lower price targets. I do think we are going to be moving down to at least 22,000, and that is if Bitcoin closes a weekly candle below 29,000. Let's say Bitcoin reverses and Bitcoin has a huge buy up candle. I would be very inclined to believe that that would be the bottom, because once buying volume starts to ensue, obviously right now we've got a plethora of selling volume. So, you know, the volume in itself, volume speaks volumes. It does seem like Bitcoin wants to capitulate to lower price targets. So like I said, we've gone through the data points, we've gone through the macro moving averages. The levels of 22,000, 19,000 and 16,000 do seem to be a huge level of support for Bitcoin. What region do you think we're moving down to? I feel like 22k on this moving average between 22 and 19 could definitely be on the table. I don't think we'd make it all the way down to the previous all-time high at 19 to 20, simply because that's just something that we have not witnessed before. So I would be very you know, dumbfounded to believe that we would move down that low, but anything's possible. This is what we're getting prepared from by looking at these moving averages. Now, if we check out the stock market quickly, the dollar is rampaging today. The dollar is breaking above and making new all-time highs already. You've got Coinbase stock down 25% today. All of these stocks are getting slaughtered. Tesla's down 8%, Facebook's down 5%. Apple is down 5%. Netflix is down 6%. Microsoft is down 3%. The SPY down 1.5%, breaking down to new lows. The Nasdaq is down 3%, and the SPX is down 1.5%. I talked about this. I've been tweeting this for the past couple of days. I posted this today. You know, I said the DXY is breaking out, and if you're buying the dip on altcoins, you're going to get slaughtered. That is my opinion, at least. And so far, you know, I've been saying this for the past couple of days. Altcoins have become a lot cheaper against Bitcoin since we've been, you know, aping into Bitcoin at these low price targets. So the dollar is very strong. By buying altcoins, by buying the dip in a lot of these cryptos, you're really betting against the Fed, and I would not bet against the Fed. If the Fed keeps on increasing the interest rates, keep on making it harder and harder to borrow the dollar, then the value of the dollar is going to go up because it costs more to borrow. Less people are going to borrow the dollar, less people are going to be trading stocks, ergo less people are going to be trading in the crypto markets. If the CPI, if inflation keeps on going up, the cost of living is going to keep on going up, and then people are not going to be able to justify, you know, putting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even if you're a small trader, you know, thousands of dollars in these cryptocurrencies that have, you know, most of these have zero utility, let's just be honest. That does not go for every single cryptocurrency on this list. I'm not, you know, a Bitcoin maxi who thinks only Bitcoin has got utility. I do think Bitcoin is the only crypto that has store of value, though. Everything else would be transactional value or utility value, like Ethereum or Solana. I do not believe these will be hedges against inflation. I don't think there'll be stores of value. I only think Bitcoin is going to be the store of value in this bear market. So looks like everything's going down. The dollar is rallying. By buying altcoins at this moment in time, bear in mind you are fighting against a trend. The dollar is exceptionally strong right now. I would be very cautious about entering altcoins. So which level do you think Bitcoin is going to break down to? I've also got a video idea for later today where we're going to be looking at Bitcoin for a different perspective. So that means instead of measuring Bitcoin against the US dollar, we're going to be checking out how Bitcoin has previously performed against oil, gold, silver, the stock markets, commodities, etc, etc, etc. So if you're interested in hearing that video, stay tuned. Let me know if that's something you want to see. I do enjoy doing these macro Bitcoin videos and looking at things from a slightly different perspective than most YouTubers do. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found some value in this. Probably took a decent amount of time to go through, but you know, these longer videos, I do try and encompass as much information as I can, so I hope you appreciate these. We looked at the Bitcoin logarithmic growth curves, breaking through the bottom of these one deviation oversold, really not looking good. We showed you potential places where Bitcoin could bottom, 22,000, 19,000 and 16,000 on these moving averages. And we also talked about the fact that Bitcoin is capitulating, and you know, at least if we remove the moving averages, the only next line down is 19,000. 14 days worth of data traded between 19,000 and 29,000 could be very worrying. I'm not that worried. I've never felt more comfortable in my Bitcoin position. I'm using this time to enter the Bitcoin market and leave the altcoins alone until the Fed backpedals, until the Federal Reserve stops increasing the interest rates. Then I'm just going to be going with the flow. I do not think you should be fighting the Fed by buying the dip on altcoins. You're literally buying as the dollar is breaking out. This could be very dangerous. That's all I've got for you. Best of luck. Hope you found some value in this. Cowboy out. Peace.